Who's wrong and who's wronger? In this corner, followed by millions, James the Exploding Unicorn Breakwell. And in that corner, ignored by millions, Steve Dash Rinko Levens. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Oh, that's so touching compared to other applause tracks that I have become acquainted with. Or, I'm sorry, I'm talking to an English major here, the Exploding Unicorn, with which I have become acquainted.
That fake applause seemed pretty genuine. I think they meant it.
Well, Steve Olivas and James Breakwell with you on Wrong and Wronger, and this is the show where we take on points that people argue about, and again, I'm ending a clause with a preposition, which probably doesn't work, but that really mean nothing. And what are we going to tackle today, James?
We are going to tackle the issue that's really at the heart of America right now. Should you or should you not put ketchup on a hot dog?
Hot dogs are a part of Americana with apple pie and baseball or Chevrolet, depending on which era you grew up in.
But is ketchup? That's the question here.
Ketchup
is it too much, America? Is it not enough? I don't know. We're gonna argue about it.
We didn't introduce each other, and I'm not sure if you had anything prepped for this, but I was prepared this time because I dropped the ball the last time.
You know what? I don't know if you just dropped the ball the last time. You pretty much just drop the ball always. But you go ahead with your intro, and then I'll come with mine.
I am sitting across from my esteemed colleague, James Breakwell, and he's a guy who can wear button-fly jeans again. Finally, James, I'm happy for you, but because I know about that incident where you sent a bunch of people to the hospital while you were field testing that Gorilla Glue fly prototype. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad everyone is okay.
You know what? I can't discuss it too much. The lawsuits are still pending.
Sure.
I just want to assure everyone no parts were permanently damaged. I'm back and back in the picture again. So thank you very much for your thoughts and prayers. The gift cards are appreciated.
And the gift cards for the Brazilian wax, that was a little bit ironic, but I got it to you in good faith.
I took that one kind of personally, but I'm going to use it. Not going to lie. I'm not one to waste a gift card. And Steve, you've been so modest. I know you were away, and people think you took a trip. But I heard about what you did. You were the first person to successfully perform CPR on a goldfish. I mean, bravo to you. That was
Well, it's the reverse osmosis, blowing the air into the gills and then out the mouth, that you really have to perfect.
Yeah, I mean, a cynic might say you just replaced the goldfish with another goldfish. I mean, they kind of all look the same to me, but I believe your story. I believe in you. So
you can search my trash for baggies. All right, well, let's get into it. Now, I do not have a coin this time, James. I feel as though I have let you down.
Well, again, you have. You don't have to keep saying it. It's just assumed in any given topic you have let me down. But I do have a coin because I make English major money, so I've got this quarter here. My full week of earnings.
Of two. Yeah, all right.
All right. So, one of our things here is we argue things fairly debate style, so we pick our positions by coin flips. So I'm going to say, let's say that do you want the coin to determine your position, or I'll have it determine your position. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to say heads up is pro ketchup, and tails up is anti-ketchup, and whichever side ends up is what your position will be. Your fate is in my hand. I flipped it poorly. It's bouncing everywhere. It is tails up. You are anti-ketchup.
Anti-ketchup is exactly the place to be. Exactly the place to be. The hand of fate has smiled upon me today and has really frowned upon you. And based on everything you've told me about your youth, that the karmic slingshot has just been growing further and further backwards, and now it has released because I have the correct position. I also want to assure our listeners, you really tossed the coin. We don't know who's going to get which position that we begin on. Is that correct?
This is true. Like, we don't care which position we have, but once we get a position, we will get very angry about it and legitimately hate the other person. Like, the anger is real.
Well, the anger stems back a ways.
Absolutely. That's why, actually, as we sit here, there's actually a glass partition between us, at the insistence of Steve's wife after the last time.
Well, I pressed my naked breast against the glass, and I was crying, and it was a whole thing.
Oh, and now you understand why we can't do video with this podcast. This is why.
Underpants and Argyle socks, and I saw.
Oh, that tweet was true. Oh no, I have to stop following you.
Well, ketchup on hot dogs. I'm going to take a little bit of an ironic twist on this because I love ketchup, and I think my Twitter followers understand that my position for ketchup on steak is firm. That ketchup belongs on steak. I like ketchup in macaroni and cheese. I like ketchup on eggs. But ketchup on a hot dog is wrong. You've got to have mustard, and preferably brown mustard. And if you're a little hoity-toity, if you're making English major money, you go Grey Poupon. But ketchup on hot dog, it's a little sweet with the hot dog. Like, kids like ketchup on hot dogs because they're like yum-yum kind of stuff. Kids will always go for the yummy tasting things. Kids would not like beer, for example. That's an acquired taste when you're an adult, and so is a fine mustard. And mustard and sausage, I grew up in Wisconsin, man. That is the land of sausage and cheese and things that go with a nice, good, solid horseradish-based mustard. Ketchup on hot dogs is wrong. You've got to have a little bit of bite.
Well, I think it's interesting that you took this approach. That you're misleading our listeners again. I almost said readers. But I don't think anybody's going to read this. As far as I know, there's not going to be any transcript.
Well, a little
of this.
TBD
maybe afterwards,
for people that are visually impaired. They can
maybe the loser of the podcast has to go type it up and email it to everybody. That's write it by hand like a monk.
We'll have a super fan.
There's no exclusivity to this. You can enjoy ketchup and mustard on your hot dog. Yeah, mind blown.
Man,
I went
that's like
there.
being a cat and a dog person. It just doesn't work out. But please,
I've got a dog and a pig. The world is a complex and diverse place, and let's have some diversity with our condiments. I mean, and first of all, ketchup is really essential because let's face it, it's the strongest and boldest of the condiments, perhaps the greatest of the condiments. It's the reason it's on every restaurant table in America. And if you don't see the ketchup, guess what? You've accidentally stepped into North Korea. That's how you know you've gone too far.
Hold on. Once again, I learn a lot from you, and I got to take notes while you talk. All right, North Korea.
But really, there's a reason this argument is taking place over hot dogs and other food. Is there's special properties to hot dogs.
All right.
And I love hot dogs to death, but you have to accept the fact that nobody really knows what's in them. I mean, it could be one animal, it could be a dozen different kinds of animals. I mean, there's just an element of risk there, an element of inconsistency. When you go from one brand to another, I mean, this one might be beef, this one might be zoo animals, you just don't know.
Some are blessed by a rabbi.
It might be, but what you do know is you've got ketchup, the great unifier, the great equalizer, and no matter what poor animal was slaughtered, or perhaps herd of animals
or fell into the grinder, all right,
it's going to taste like ketchup, and you can feel safe in that. Also,
there's more.
Also, if you want, of course, there's more. I've got a million points on that.
I drew a line under the North Korea.
I've got a giant scroll of reasons.
All right,
but if you want your children to eat, you apply ketchup. I mean, kids could live on ketchup alone, but you've got to introduce them to like a meat-like product at first. And hot dogs are pretty close to meat, so you just layer the ketchup on there, and they eat it and thereby avoid starvation. Like, this is what my kids lived on for the first 3 years of their life. I mean, you take away ketchup, you're bringing back malnutrition. Is that what you want, Steve? Think of the kids.
Ketchup was a staple. I remember Dolly Parton telling the story that when she was couldn't even afford the O-R at the end of that word, that she would make tomato soup by adding ketchup to hot water out of the tap. And so I don't know just how far out into Appalachia you want to take your kids to start nutrifying them, and don't write that down, Mr. English major. You're going to be horrified. But why is that going to be the staple in your diet? And I didn't realize that you were that under a rock that you said ketchup is the strongest of all condiments. I want to introduce you to something called wasabi. And you're going to have a whole new world open up for you with 2 words, Texas Pete. That's all I'm going to say. There's a lot out there, and hot dogs need a little bit of bite.
I am a connoisseur of the hot sauces. I actually have a smorgasbord of hot sauces on my table right now. I'm no stranger to flavor.
All right.
But I take those flavors and I mix them with ketchup a lot of times. Like, for example, French fries. Have you ever tried putting hot sauce just straight on French fries? No. You put the ketchup down, you mix the hot sauce in. I mean, Ketchup is there for you when you need it. It's the old friend that's going to, drive you home when you're drunk and not tell your wife what you guys did that night. It's trustworthy. It's always been there. And I don't feel like I can just betray it at that point. I mean, also, it's a vegetable. I mean, you've got real tomatoes in there. I mean, what other vegetables do I get during the day? Like, if I wasn't eating ketchup on my hot dogs, I would probably have scurvy. So thank you, ketchup. I've got my teeth because of you.
Wow.
And
no, hey, far be it from me to interrupt a roll like this. You got North Korea and scurvy into this one. This is nice.
I'm sorry. I get so excited about ketchup. I know that our position is completely random, but God hath gifted me the right position, and I just feel like I have to, take this chance and smite you once and for all. This will be our final podcast because your mind will just be so blown.
I want to make sure that you didn't use the wrong auxiliary verb there, but okay, keep going.
All right, so it's not just, let's face it, there's more than one kind of ketchup. There is a whole exciting world of ketchups out there. Every restaurant, every blend is a little bit different. Like McDonald's, for example, has an entirely its own type of ketchup made from its own tomato fields. And I think it's pretty good. It's pretty tangy. Now, we buy generic store brand ketchup, but it's still its own kind. I mean, you could sample ketchups the way you sample hot sauces and improve your hot dog experience drastically. We're talking culture here, Steve. What do you got against culture?
Against culture, you mentioned that hot dogs are at least 30% actual meat by volume, and you're going to put culture in the same sentence with that?
Culture is about adventure. I mean, it's the excitement of not knowing. You can eat an all beef patty, but where's the fun in that? Ooh, beef.
I don't mean to go.
You just read the end of the book.
Don't mean to go highfalutin on you, because I know you've got a mere bachelor's degree. But there is a test in psychology called the Rorschach, the ink blot test. And there are very few answers people can give that are in and of themselves indicative of something evil lurking under the surface. One of those is called a blood response. It only takes 2 of those and you're a sociopath. Now, for somebody as learned as you and loquacious as you, to the point that you even know what the word loquacious means, that you're going to sully your reputation with ketchup in hot dogs, and ketchup red. I almost wonder, what is that symbolic of for you? We can get into some of those childhood transgressions, but I don't want to embarrass nor tear down your ego right here on the air. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to leave that right there. Ketchup and blood, both red, the Rorschach, and hot dogs. The bridge is built.
As a normal, well-adjusted human being, I don't typically associate ketchup with murder. I mean, call me crazy, but that's not the first place my mind goes with it.
Well,
but I don't know, goldfish CPR. I'm no expert on life like you. But I think the biggest challenge of ketchup, and there is a drawback. Sure. I mean, it's the stains. I've got kids, and as they're avoiding scurvy by scarfing down these delectable and diverse varieties of ketchup, I mean, there can be some splatter there.
What are you doing to your kids that they're teetering on the brink of scurvy all the time?
You know what? I'd like to see you make a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old eat just whatever you put on the table. I made them pork chops the other day, the best pork chops I have ever cooked in my life, with cheesy rice. 3 of them would not take a single bite, which was quite frankly awesome because I got all their food.
Was it personal? Was that like just their thumb in their nose at the man?
No, I mean, that's like what happens 90% of the time if what I cook doesn't end up with ketchup on it. And sometimes, like, the ketchup isn't strong enough and they can taste food underneath, and that's the deal breaker.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, this is a matter of life and death, This is keeping my kids' dental hygiene intact, on course, keeping their teeth in their head.
And don't bury the lead. The staining properties are what you were talking about. You're playing into my hand.
I'm talking about what?
The stains, their capacity for staining clothing and tablecloths and dogs.
There's 2 routes as an experienced parent you can take. You can either strip the kids down so that you can hose them off more easily later, or you can cover them with trash bags, tarps, ponchos, whatever you want.
It'd be like at a Gallagher concert. All right.
It's pretty close to that. But again, this might be the only food they eat for 3 or 4 days. So eventually you just kind of stop trying and you just give them something with ketchup on it. And if it's a hot dog, all the better, because hot dogs take about 15 seconds to cook in the microwave. And it's just beautiful. It pops out, you put ketchup on it, and you are done.
Hold on.
Maintains, I've fed my kids, I've done my job, and I've kept my sanity.
Jeez.
And isn't a little ketchup on a hot dog worth my sanity, Steve? Isn't it?
His kids once every 3 days. All right.
Oh, I feed them every day. They choose to eat once every 3 days. This is optional starvation they're choosing to go with. It's a hunger strike
starvation
without meaning
it's
or purpose.
Bobby Sands, IRA, up Ulster. Well, it's that freedom of choice that makes this country great, and that freedom of choice which makes this show great. We got to come to a close. We're almost at the 15-minute mark here, man.
Wow, that is impressive. I didn't even get through half of my scroll of reasons, but that's okay, because these reasons can also apply to other things. Half of them are just you suck at everything. So,
well,
it's okay. I can apply those on any topic.
I do appreciate all of your admiration for that segue to get us out and you pulling us right back in. But whatever. I mean, I understand you're inexperienced at this, and I give you certain allowances for that kind of thing to happen.
The fight's not over till you're crying. Let's just accept that. Okay, do the outro, and I will just let you have your moment.
Steve Olivas for James Breakwell saying, follow us on Twitter. James is the man at Exploding Unicorn with an X, like the word extreme right now. He is the Exploding Unicorn, XP. And I am Steve Olivas at Steve Olivas. Steve is with a V, and I say that only because James can't stand it. Until next time. And I think you're going to enjoy the next show just as much as this one. But listen anyway. Thanks for listening, everybody.